Chapter 1. The Fractured Reflection. The familiar, comforting scent of parchment, wood smoke, and pumpkin pasties hung in the Gryffindor common room, a welcome anchor after the journey back to Hogwarts. Outside the tall windows, rain pattered gently against the glass, blurring the view of the Quidditch pitch into soft green and gray smudges. Harry Potter sat by the crackling fire, his Transfiguration textbook lying forgotten on his lap. Ron was sprawled nearby, a chocolate frog card half propped on his chest as he dozed, a picture of peaceful contentment. Hermione's brow was furrowed in concentration over a thick tome, magical artifacts of the 3rd century, but she looked up occasionally, her gaze resting thoughtfully on Harry. Despite the warm scene, a quiet restlessness stirred within Harry. Sleep hadn't been easy since returning to the castle. His dreams were vague and unsettled, leaving him feeling oddly adrift upon waking. The castle itself felt watchful. Not menacing, exactly, but as if the ancient stones were holding a secret breath. The usual cheerful chatter in the corridors seemed slightly muted, the torchlight flickering just a fraction more unpredictably. Needing to move, Harry carefully stood, not wanting to disturb Ron. He slipped quietly through the portrait hole. The fat lady merely murmured in her sleep, and into the dimly lit 7th floor corridor. The silence here was deeper than usual, broken only by the soft sigh of the wind outside and the distant rumble of thunder. His footsteps echoed softly as he walked, his shadow stretching long and thin on the stone floor ahead. Turning a corner, he stopped. A tapestry depicting clumsy trolls attempting ballet had hung here last week. Now, in its place, stood a large, ornate mirror. Recognition flickered. The Mirror of Erised. But it wasn't as he remembered. The heavy gold frame was dull, almost tarnished, and fine, silvery cracks webbed across its surface like frozen lace. The glass itself looked slightly unsettled, like the surface of a pond disturbed by a dropped pebble, even though the air was still. A faint, cool draft seemed to emanate from it, carrying a dusty, old parchment scent. Curiosity, tinged with a prickle of unease, drew Harry closer. His reflection swam into focus, familiar yet strangely layered. His own face looked back, perhaps a little more tired than he'd like, but superimposed faintly over it was the image of his 11-year-old self, waving excitedly beside his beaming parents. The image shimmered, unstable. For a fleeting, jarring second, his parents' joyful expressions flickered into something startled, their forms seeming to waver as if seen through heat haze. Harry blinked, taking a half-step back. The reflection reformed, clearer now, his older self, looking weary and isolated, standing alone amidst indistinct, shadowy ruins of Hogwarts, a snapped wand held loosely in his hand. A soft susurration, like pages turning in a quiet library, seemed to vibrate from the glass itself. Words, indistinct and overlapping, brushed at the edge of his hearing. Alone, path unwinds. It was more unsettling than frightening, a discordant whisper that raised goosebumps on his arms. Potter? A voice, sharper than the surrounding silence, cut through the air. Pansy Parkinson stood a few yards away, her usual haughty expression absent. Instead, her face was pale, her eyes wide and fixed not on Harry, but on the cracked mirror. Her knuckles were white where she gripped the edge of her robe. What is that?" she asked, her voice tight. She didn't move closer, hovering at the edge of the corridor's light as if the mirror radiated cold. Her gaze darted nervously between the fractured glass and Harry. "Did you see something odd in it?" Harry pulled his eyes away from the mirror, the strange whispering fading to a faint hum. "It showed me my parents," he said quietly, "for a moment. Then it changed, showed me alone." He left out the whispers and the ruinous backdrop. Pansy flinched almost imperceptibly, her hand rising slightly towards her throat. Her carefully cultivated composure was visibly shaken, revealing genuine apprehension beneath. "I saw my father," she whispered, the words barely louder than the distant storm. "He was pleased. Then his face, it blurred, shifted, and behind him, I thought I saw smoke." She wrapped her arms around herself. It felt wrong, unsettling, like the glass was watching. An unexpected sense of shared discomfort hung in the air, momentarily overriding years of mutual dislike. Harry glanced back. The mirror now reflected only the distorted corridor behind him, but the cracks still glimmered with a faint silvery light. Pansy followed his gaze, her fear seeming to harden into wary resolve. "This isn't right," she stated, her voice firmer now, though still tight. Things have been off. Little things. Charms flickering oddly. Portraits muttering gibberish. And now this! She gestured sharply towards the mirror. Someone should figure out what's happening. Before. She trailed off, meeting Harry's eyes directly. There was a challenge there, but also a flicker of something else. A shared need to understand. Surely even you can see that? Harry stared at the fractured reflection, the image of his isolated future self lingering uncomfortably. The soft whispering seemed to coil in his mind. Pansy had a point. This felt more than just a spooky object. It felt like a distortion. Who could understand something that warped reflections and whispered half-heard warnings? Flitwick? McGonagall? Or someone whose expertise delved into the darker, more obscure corners of magic? The answer surfaced reluctantly: Severus Snape. The potions master possessed a deep, if unpleasant, knowledge of protective enchantments and the peculiar. Harry nodded slowly, the movement feeling heavy. Yeah, he agreed, the word tasting dry. Someone should. He turned away from the unsettling glass, the cool draft still clinging faintly. The path forward, it seemed, led down to the dungeons and towards a conversation he deeply dreaded. The mirror was a sign, he felt certain, the first quiet tremor before something more significant shifted.